Welcome, dear listeners. In today's discussion, we're going to delve into a subject that has puzzled many, stirred heated debates, and deeply touched the hearts of countless individuals. The inner torment of a narcissist when he comes to the painful realization that you are no longer living with him. Over the next few minutes, we'll explore the intricacies of narcissistic behavior, the tumultuous mix of emotions that arise when a narcissist faces rejection or loss, and the often hidden agony that belies his outward appearance of confidence and self-assurance. You might have noticed, if you have ever been in the presence of such a personality, that behind every boastful smile and every grandiose claim lies a fragile ego, desperately clinging to validation and control. Today, we will unpack this paradox in a way that is accessible, detailed, and rooted in psychological expertise, all while engaging you with vivid examples and empathetic insights. Stay tuned, because by the end of this discussion, you will gain a deeper understanding of the narcissist's world, a world where the departure of someone significant is not just a minor inconvenience, but a seismic shock that shatters the carefully constructed illusion of perfection. Before we begin our exploration in earnest, I invite you to get comfortable and open your mind to the profound psychological insights we are about to share. I encourage you to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with friends or anyone who might benefit from understanding the depths of human behavior. As a psychologist dedicated to demystifying complex behaviors, I want this conversation to be as interactive and engaging as possible. Your support not only helps spread awareness about these important issues, but also builds a community that values empathy, self-growth, and understanding. Now let's begin our journey into the mind of a narcissist. When we talk about narcissists, we often picture individuals who seem to have an unshakable sense of self-importance, who command admiration and attention, and who seemingly thrive on the adoration of those around them. However, beneath this glossy surface lies an intricate network of insecurities and vulnerabilities. The narcissist's identity is, in many ways, a fragile construct built on external validation and control. In the intricate dance of relationships, the narcissist carefully curates every interaction to ensure that his self-worth is continuously reaffirmed. Every smile, every compliment, every subtle nod of approval from those around him is like a precious drop of oil on the engine of his ego. Yet, when the person who once provided that much-needed source of validation, the person whose presence seemed to power his very existence, is no longer there, the shock can be overwhelming. Imagine, for a moment, the complex interplay of emotions that occur in such a scenario. For many, the ideal of someone leaving is painful, but for a narcissist, it is not just an emotional blow, it is an existential crisis. The realization that you are no longer living with him signals the collapse of a carefully maintained illusion. The narcissist, who has always relied on the presence of others to validate his grandiosity, suddenly finds himself facing the reality that his primary source of affirmation has been abruptly removed. In this void, the facade of invincibility begins to crumble, and what remains is a raw, unfiltered vulnerability that is both unfamiliar and deeply disturbing to him. The suffering that ensues is not merely emotional, it is profoundly psychological, as his identity, so heavily reliant on external validation, starts to unravel. At the heart of this suffering is the bitter taste of rejection, a sensation that for the narcissist is as alien as it is unbearable. Rejection, in this context, is not simply a personal slight, it is a repudiation of his very sense of self. When you decide to leave, you are, in effect, rejecting the version of him that he has painstakingly constructed over the years. This rejection sends shockwaves through his psyche, leading him to question the legitimacy of his self-image. The carefully constructed narrative that he has shared with the world, one of boundless charm, unassailable strength, and unyielding perfection, suddenly appears as nothing more than a facade. This collapse of self-perception can lead to intense internal conflict, a painful cognitive dissonance, where the narcissist is forced to confront the possibility that he might not be as superior or infallible as he once believed. One of the most fascinating and tragic aspects of this psychological unraveling is the interplay between anger and despair. On one hand, the narcissist might react with explosive anger, lashing out at those he perceives to be responsible for this betrayal. This anger is not merely a reaction to the act of leaving, but rather a desperate attempt to regain control over a situation that has spiraled beyond his grasp. In his mind, anger becomes a tool, a weapon to reassert his dominance and mask the underlying pain. Yet, beneath this veneer of fury lies a deep-seated despair, a sorrow that he would never openly admit even to himself. The very thought that his grand narrative might be coming undone is overwhelming, and the despair that follows is a silent, creeping terror that threatens to engulf him entirely. The narcissist's suffering is further compounded by the loss of the idealized image he once held of himself, a persona that was meticulously crafted through years of adulation, manipulation, and self-deception. When the presence of his partner or companion was a constant stream of affirmations, his self-worth was nourished. But now, in the absence of this constant validation, he is left alone with the disquieting silence of his own unacknowledged vulnerabilities. Every moment becomes a confrontation with the possibility that he is, in fact, no longer enough. This realization can lead to a cycle of self-doubt, where every past interaction is re-examined through the lens of failure, and every compliment is dismissed as a mere trick of the mind. In these moments, the narcissist's suffering is not outwardly visible to the untrained eye, but it is profoundly real, a quiet, persistent ache that gnaws at the foundations of his self-esteem. It is important to note that this suffering is not an inevitable path to redemption or self-reflection for the narcissist. Often, instead of embracing the vulnerability, he may resort to a variety of defense mechanisms to shield himself from the full brunt of the pain. Denial is a common reaction, where he refuses to acknowledge that the departure has any bearing on his self-worth. He might rationalize the situation, insisting that the fault lies not in his own shortcomings, but in the perceived inadequacies of the person who left. Projection, another well-known defense mechanism, may see him attributing his own sense of failure to the other person, accusing them of being incapable of truly understanding or appreciating him. This externalization of blame not only helps him avoid confronting the core issue, but also preserves the integrity of the narcissistic self-image, even if only temporarily. As a psychologist, I have observed that the pain of rejection often triggers a series of internal dialogues that the narcissist is ill-equipped to handle. These dialogues are a cacophony of self-justifications, bitter comparisons, and a relentless pursuit of an unattainable ideal. The narcissist may find himself oscillating between moments of grandiosity, where he clings to the remnants of his former glory, and periods of debilitating self-doubt. It is in these moments of introspection, however fleeting, that the true depth of his suffering becomes apparent. The realization that someone important has chosen a path away from him forces him to confront the possibility that his methods of validation and control have inherent limitations. This confrontation, though rarely embraced, has the potential to be a turning point, a moment of reckoning that could either lead to a gradual transformation or further entrench his maladaptive behaviors. Yet, the transformation is not something that occurs overnight. The narcissist's journey through this dark period is fraught with setbacks and relapses into old patterns. Each attempt to rebuild his sense of self through external validation is a reminder of the ephemeral nature of the approval he once took for granted. The suffering in this sense is a slow burn, a continuous struggle to reconcile the idealized version of himself with the stark reality that he is no longer the center of someone else's universe. This process can be both painfully introspective and aggressively outward, as he oscillates between self-pity and a renewed determination to reclaim his lost status. The internal conflict is as dramatic as it is exhausting, and it speaks volumes about the precarious balance that underlies the narcissist's self-worth. In the broader context of human relationships, the suffering of a narcissist in the face of rejection serves as a stark reminder of the delicate interplay between identity and validation. While it might be tempting to dismiss his pain as merely the reaction of someone who has lost a superficial connection, the reality is far more complex. The narcissist's suffering is a manifestation of a deeper existential struggle, a struggle to maintain a coherent and unblemished self-image in a world that is inherently unpredictable and often indifferent. This internal battle is one that many of us can relate to on some level, albeit in less extreme forms. At its core, it touches upon the universal human need for acceptance, recognition, and a sense of belonging. When these needs are thwarted, the pain is real and profound, regardless of whether it is expressed in a dramatic outburst or a quiet, internal despair. It is also worth reflecting on the societal implications of this dynamic. In our modern culture, where the cultivation of a flawless public image is often paramount, the narcissist's plight may seem both familiar and alien at the same time. Social media, for instance, has amplified the importance of external validation, turning every interaction into a potential source of approval or rejection. In such an environment, the narcissist's reliance on external affirmation becomes even more pronounced, and the impact of losing that validation is correspondingly magnified. The suffering he experiences is not confined to the private realm, but spills over into his public persona, affecting his interactions, his decision-making, and ultimately his place in the social hierarchy. This public dimension of his pain underscores a fundamental truth. No matter how invincible one might seem on the surface, every human being is vulnerable to the sting of rejection. For those who have found themselves entangled in relationships with narcissists, understanding this inner turmoil can offer a measure of clarity and perhaps even a path towards healing. Recognizing that the narcissist's anger and hostility often mask a profound sense of loss and inadequacy can be liberating. It is a reminder that behind the brash exterior lies a person grappling with issues of self-worth and identity, issues that are as old as humanity itself. This perspective does not excuse harmful behavior, but it does shed light on the origins of such behavior, and in doing so, opens the door to more compassionate interactions. By viewing the narcissist's suffering as a complex interplay of psychological needs and defensive strategies, we can better navigate the turbulent waters of these relationships with empathy and, when necessary, appropriate boundaries. At this point, I invite you to take a moment to reflect on these ideas. If you're finding this discussion insightful, please remember to subscribe, like, and share this video. Your engagement helps foster a community where we can all learn from one another, explore difficult topics, and grow together. As we continue, keep in mind that this exploration is not meant to offer a one-size-fits-all explanation, but rather to provide a nuanced understanding of a multifaceted issue, one that challenges us to look beyond surface behaviors and consider the deeper emotional currents at play. Continuing on this reflective journey, let's consider the psychological mechanisms that further illustrate the narcissist's plight, when faced with the reality of abandonment. One of the most striking aspects is the interplay between self-deception and the need for admiration. Throughout his life, the narcissist has built an elaborate narrative that paints him as the hero of his own story, a protagonist endowed with unique talents and unparalleled charm. This narrative, while providing a temporary buffer against life's adversities, is inherently unsustainable. When you leave, it is not just the physical presence that is missed, it is the steady stream of affirmations that kept this narrative alive. The resulting vacuum forces the narcissist to confront the fact that his self-concept is largely a product of the external reflections of those around him, rather than an intrinsic quality. This realization can be nothing short of devastating, leading him to question the very foundation of his identity. The ensuing internal strife is a potent mix of denial, anger, and an overwhelming sense of inadequacy, a cocktail that often leaves him emotionally paralyzed. Furthermore, the suffering is exacerbated by the societal expectations placed on the narcissist. In a world that values success, confidence, and a polished public image, the narcissist is expected to remain unyielding, even in the face of personal crisis. Admitting vulnerability is tantamount to exposing the chinks in his armor, something he is loath to do given the high stakes of his carefully constructed self-image. As a result, the initial shock of your departure is often met with an intense, albeit disingenuous, display of stoicism. Yet, beneath this facade of control, the emotional turbulence is profound. The narcissist might engage in behaviors that are seemingly aimed at regaining control, be it through attempts to charm, manipulate, or even belittle the person who left. These actions, however, are rarely about genuine remorse or a desire to reconcile. Rather, they are manifestations of a desperate need to reassert dominance and reclaim the sense of self that has been shaken to its core. It is in these moments that we see the paradox of narcissistic suffering most clearly. On one hand, the narcissist's outward expressions of anger and defiance are intended to project an image of strength and resilience. On the other, these very expressions are a mask, a way to deflect from the deep-seated pain that lurks beneath. The irony is palpable. The more vehemently he denies the impact of your departure, the more evident it becomes that he is struggling to maintain the illusion of invulnerability. This inner conflict is not merely a personal crisis. It reverberates through his relationships, his professional life, and his overall sense of purpose. The psychological toll is immense, yet it remains largely hidden from view, concealed beneath layers of bravado and defensiveness. As we navigate these complex emotional landscapes together, it becomes evident that the suffering of a narcissist is, in many ways, a mirror reflecting the universal human fear of abandonment and rejection. While the narcissist's methods of coping are often maladaptive and at times destructive, they ultimately stem from a deeply human place, the desire to be seen, to be valued, and to belong. This recognition does not absolve the narcissist of responsibility for his actions, nor does it diminish the pain experienced by those around him. Instead, it offers a window into the intricate web of psychological forces that drive behavior, reminding us that even those who seem the most self-assured can harbor profound insecurities. Reflecting on this intricate dance of emotions, it becomes clear that the journey of the narcissist after the realization that you are no longer living with him is one fraught with internal contradictions and relentless self-scrutiny. Every interaction, every fleeting moment of solitude becomes a battleground where the desire for validation clashes with the stark reality of isolation. The struggle is not one of mere pride, but of survival, a frantic, often futile attempt to rebuild a self-image that has been irrevocably altered. The narcissist's suffering is a testament to the fragile nature of the human psyche, a reminder that beneath even the most confident exteriors lie the seeds of doubt and vulnerability. As we reach the concluding moments of our discussion, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to you for joining me on this deep dive into the emotional labyrinth of narcissistic suffering. I hope that the insights shared here have shed light on the often overlooked dimensions of narcissistic behavior, offering both clarity and a renewed sense of empathy. Remember, understanding the psychological underpinnings of behavior can be a powerful tool in fostering healthier relationships and in nurturing our own emotional well-being. Before we wrap up, I invite you once again to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback and engagement not only enrich our community, but also help spread awareness about the complexities of human psychology. Thank you for taking the time to listen, for reflecting on these ideas, and for being a part of this ongoing conversation. Let us continue to learn, grow, and support one another on this journey of understanding and healing. Until next time, take care and stay curious.